Matthew 1. Name codes is something that I have been doing it with a lot of books or a lot of chapters of scriptures. I'm actually working on a book about it. Imagine how much information one can get from it. But I have other ones on the work, so I'm not even going to talk about that one for a while. And what the name codes basically means is that if you understand Hebrew, you can understand the meanings of the names that were given to the people that are found in scriptures. When you know the meanings, then you can find a deeper meaning behind a genealogy, for instance, or behind the names that you find on a regular chapter. When you see a list of names, even when you see 3 names, I do it when I find 2 names, but I'm just saying, when you find 3 names, if you figure out the meaning of those names, then you can find a message hidden in that verse, because that's how deep and perfect the scriptures are. So in this case, we have the book of Matthew, which has a bunch of names. So this that we are going to do is called name codes. We're going to find the code hidden in the meanings of the names of the genealogy of Yahushua found on Matthew 1. We already read the names last week, so I'm going to start already with the meanings of the names, trying to tell the story that is being hidden behind those names. And remember, keep in mind always, please, that those names are names of Yahushua's ancestors. Those are the names of the people through whom Yahushua came to earth. So just as the rest of scriptures, the messages that we always find in these name codes are relating to Messiah. But remember, as I explained last week also, remember that Yahweh said that he would come twice to earth. He would come and manifest on earth twice, as the first and the last, as the Messiah, Ben Yehuda, means son of Yehuda, tribe of Yehuda, and the Messiah, son of Yahusef. Yahushua said he is the root. The last one is the Navi, or the prophet, like Moshe. And I'm going to start reading, like I said, with the name of Abraham, because the book starts saying the book of the genealogy of Yahushua HaMashiach, the son of David, the son of Abraham. That is like, in a nutshell, HaMashiach, Yahushua, came through David, who in turn came through Abraham. So he who caused to exist enriches, saves those who he loves, because David means beloved. Those who he loves as the father of the many. So just starting, we can see a message. He who caused to exist saves those who he loves as the father of the many. And then we start with Abraham, which is the actual start of the genealogy. And I'm going to read the meanings of the names, which you already have there. And I will have to add certain words like you're about to see, but are simple words just to connect and understand the message better. But as you will see, there's a reason for it. So it says, father of a multitude. The father of a multitude, as we know, is Abraham, is the name that Abraham received. And he became the father of those who believe in one creator, one, not many, just one. Those that believe that the Almighty is one, like the Shema Israel says it. So Abraham became the father of those who have faith in the one Elohim. Through Abraham came the Muslims, through Ishmael. Through Yitzhak came Jacob and Esau. And Jacob is the father of the tribes of Israel. He became Israel. And Esau, his brother, he infiltrated basically, or was forced into Judaism about 100 years before the Messiah. And many Edomites became Jews, and they still are. The rest of the Edomites, or sons of Esau, became the Romans. So we see the Catholic Church, which is the mother of the Christian doctrines. The Catholic Church is of Esau, and Esau came from Abraham. Then Israel came from Abraham, and Israel, the true Israel, worships the true Elohim, Yahweh, through the true Messiah, Yahushua. From Abraham came the main 3 religions that control this world: Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. The 3 main religions that actually claim to follow only one creator. And I say claim because depending on the doctrine or what they teach, is a different entity that they worship, as if it was the one Yahweh Almighty. But those are veils that were put in between humans and the Almighty in a way to work as filters, so that only those who are not filled with the leaven of the Pharisees may get through to the Father. So basically, those who are not actually looking for the Almighty, are not looking to be better persons, will not be able to reach the real Creator. So from Abraham came those three religions. In Christianity, they claim to worship the same mighty one, but depending on the doctrine, they worship sometimes different mighty ones, even what they call saints in Catholicism. In Islam, they claim that they do not have idolatry, but they actually worship the rock of the Kaaba. So those three main religions, even though they come from Abraham, are not actually following the true doctrine that Abraham expected them to follow. Like I was saying, the Jews of nowadays, most of them are actually Ashkenazi. Of those, there are a mix of Ashkenazi, which come from Yafet, one of the sons of Noah, and the other one from the Edomites, like I said previously. When the Edomites were forced into the belief of the Jews like 100 years before Yahushua the Messiah came to earth. So when Yahushua came to earth, there were already Edomites working and actually having control over the rest of those who followed Judaism. Being one of them, the king of Judah at that time when Yahushua was killed. So when we read the book of Yashar, we saw how the people of Esau, the brother of Jacob, went to live in a place called Kittim. Kittim became eventually Rome. What nowadays is Rome, geographically, was populated by the Edomites. So the Edomites went basically and were part of the foundation of Rome, and also were around when the Jews had so much power that they were able to convert some of the Edomites to Judaism. So that's why there are Edomites both in Judaism and in Catholicism. When you hear the teachings that they give in Judaism, you will hear eventually, if you listen enough, you will hear eventually that they call Christianity, mainly Catholics, Esau. To them, Esau, the Edomites, are Rome. But like I have said, there's enough evidence in history that shows that those Jews who are calling Catholics Edomites, those are actually also Edomites. And that's why the Almighty calls them in the book of Revelation, he calls them the synagogue of Satan. Like I said before, what we're going to do is to connect the meaning of each name to find a message in it. So we're going to start with Matthew 1. Already at first we see by Yahushua, David, and Abraham, we have he who caused to exist saves those who he loves as the father of the many, or the father of a multitude. Abraham represents the Almighty Creator. His son Yitzhak represents the Messiah, Yahushua, because just like the father sent Abraham to sacrifice, Yitzhak was actually a sign that the Father Creator Almighty would send his own son to be sacrificed for our sins. So Yitzhak is actually a representation of the Messiah, Yahushua, who came 2,000 years ago. Something that is very important is that when Yitzhak was taken to be sacrificed, he had not become a father yet. So that means that Jacob was still in his loins. So when Abraham took Yitzhak to be sacrificed, he was about to sacrifice not only Yitzhak but also Jacob, which is interesting because that means that through the sacrifice of the first, the second one also was sacrificed. And just like Abraham represents Yahweh, Yitzhak represents Yahushua the Messiah. Yitzhak means he laughs, and that has to do with the fact that when Sarah, his mother, heard that she was going to be pregnant, she didn't believe it because she was already after the years in which a woman can be pregnant, so she was not even getting her period, and her whole life she was not able to have kids. So all of a sudden a man comes, which was an angel but came in the form of a man, and said that she was going to be pregnant. She was listening because the angel was talking to Abraham, but she was listening, which she shouldn't have been doing, but she did. And the fact that when you listen to a conversation that you're not supposed to be listening, that causes a person to lose faith. So it is said that because she heard that prophecy from the angel without being in the middle of the conversation, because of that, she didn't believe that she was going to be pregnant, and that's why she laughed. And then Abraham also did at some point in a different part of the scripture. Is because of that the name was given to Yitzhak and represents the Messiah. And why does that name represent the Messiah? Because when somebody hears, even like mainly back in the day, when somebody heard that a virgin gave birth, that was something that people would laugh about. To them, it's laughable that a virgin would give birth. Not only that, also the fact that he would die and then resurrect 3 days later. That's why it is said that we are crazy for those who are being lost because of what we preach. The good news of the kingdom are foolishness, are something crazy to those who are being lost through the desires of this world. So that's why Yitzhak, he laughs, represents the Messiah, Yahushua, whose testimony makes people laugh. Because if you are not a true believer, you're going to laugh at the testimony of a Messiah who came through a virgin, died, and resurrected. After Yitzhak came Jacob, which means supplanter, someone who takes the place of another one. And it is important to understand this because it means that the one that would come in the last days would come to take somebody else's place. That's why it's called first supplanter. We know in the story that Jacob was holding the heel of Esau when he was coming out. So that means basically that he was trying to supplant Esau. So it was prophetical because it ended up happening. And as we know, or as I have explained before and we see in scriptures, the one that is coming in the end times is going to take Lucifer out of heaven. As we see in the book of Revelation 12, Michael takes Lucifer out of the second heaven, and him and the chosen few will basically take the place that Lucifer and his angels used to have, his third of the angels used to have in heaven. So that's why the last is represented by he whose name was supplanter, before having another name added to the original one, and that new one being Israel, which means the prince of the mighty one, or the soldier of the mighty one, or also some translated as he who will rule as the mighty one, as Elohim, which is important because remember that Lucifer is the mighty one of this world. So when he is supplanted by the last, that last will become the representation of the Almighty on this earth. So basically is the last coming through Yahushua to supplant, to take Lucifer's place as the representation on earth, because Yahushua is the representation on heaven, and that's why there's a connection through the first and the last. Heaven and earth are connected. So the supplanter becomes he who will rule as the mighty one. I hope that is being clear. I just wanted to explain those three names so that that part is clear. I'm not going to do the same with every other single name because we will last here forever. But I am going to read the meanings of the names so that we get the story. And like I said, I might do it a couple times, so please bear with me. And it says, starting from Abraham, the father of a multitude, meaning the Father Almighty, laughs at the supplanter. Also, we can get different understandings depending on what the scriptures has already said to us. So here I am reading the names and connecting everything that I'm reading with something that the scripture also tells us, so that we understand that it is a message that is in scriptures, but here through the names. Like I have said also, when something is literal about the Messiah the first, then it can be understood spiritual about the second coming. And when something is spiritual about Messiah the first, then it can be understood physical or literal about the last. So I just want to make that clear. So remember, supplanter normally is a negative. In Jacob's case, it was a good thing, but it's just another sign that shows us how the last is coming as a thief in the night. Yahushua said that he would come as a thief in the night in the second coming, just like a supplanter. Jacob came like a thief in the night to take the blessing from Yitzhak, the blessing that was for Esau. He took it like a thief because he was supposed to supplant him. And it was the plan, because he was supposed to be what he became. I want to make that clear. But the way it came about, I have seen it, has made a lot of people talk about the way things went down, not understanding the plan that Yahweh had behind it. So basically, all of that happened that way, in a few words, because the last is coming as the prodigal son, is coming as a supplanter, somebody who was doing bad but then repented and started doing good. Palm tree, a palm tree represents the Sadikim, basically those who are just, because the scripture says that the just ones grow like a cedar and give fruit like a palm tree. So us who believe in the Almighty, we give fruit like palm trees. And how is that palm trees give fruit? By being moved by the wind. So the wind moves the palm trees and they go from one side to the other until the water is able to reach the top and then give fruit. So that means that we are going to be moved by the wind, by spirits, in the sense of we're going to be attacked here and there, but everything that comes is simply to make us give fruit, because that's how the just give fruit. So the palm tree represents the congregation, or a congregation. The supplanter who praises Yahweh will breach and rise through the palm tree that is surrounded by a wall and is exalted. My kinsman is noble, meaning a family member or a brother who is a king. So for instance, like in the story of the prodigal son, there were two sons, one who was the firstborn and his brother, who got the clothing of a king when he repented and came back to his father. So the last is the king, the first is the Kohen Gadol, the high priest. So it's interesting here that he's saying my kinsman is noble, like if Messiah was talking about his brother, the second coming, the prodigal son. Then he says, my kinsman is noble, an enchanter in a garment. A garment makes reference to the body that we will get in the transformation, in the resurrection. Then he says, my kinsman is noble, an enchanter. This is interesting because enchanters would use their enchantments to be able to control serpents. So if the last, as the prodigal son, brother of the firstborn who never committed any sin, Yahushua the Messiah, then if the last is the king who is coming to destroy the serpent, is interesting that has the ability to control it. If we were to take those first words, since we already seen that it's talking about second coming, which is interesting, like I have just said before, like two sides of one coin. What is fulfilled with one in one way is fulfilled with the other one in another way, even though it's the same prophecy, because there are at least two interpretations of one verse. The book of Matthew, that is in the New Testament, speaks of the first coming, like a historical book, just says what Yahushua came to do. That's why we're reading names, his ancestors. But we are seeing spiritually that those words are actually prophesying about the second coming. So I just want you to keep that in mind. So if we understand that Jacob represents the last who will supplant Lucifer, then we can also say the father of the multitude, he laughs as the supplanter, praising Yahweh, and will make a breach when he rises. Remember that the last is the son of justice, as prophesied in Malachi 4:2. And Shimshon, or Samson, his name means son, little son. So he represents the second coming. So we see it here, the rising, like the rising of the son of justice. So the father of the multitude, he laughs as the supplanter. He who praises Yahweh will make a breach when he rises through the palm tree, through the congregation. Yahweh said, I am the first and the last, many times in Isaiah. Mainly 3 times, important ones. One of those, he says it a little different. He says, I am the first and I am with the last. So by saying that he's with the last, he's saying that he would come to earth once again like he did 2,000 years ago, in which he was with the 12 disciples. Now he's going to come to earth and he will be with the chosen few of the last days. So that's very important, because it means that the second coming, he's going to come through the congregation. He's going to be like one of the congregation that all of a sudden rises from it, just like we saw in the sign in the heavens of Revelation 12, when Virgo gave birth to Jupiter, meaning the virgin, the congregation, the chosen few, giving birth, spiritually speaking, to the second coming of Yahweh on earth, as being one of them that Yahweh chooses to make him the supplanter of Lucifer, the mighty one of this earth, through the sacrifice of the Messiah and of himself at the end of his ministry of 3 years and a half. So the last one will come out of the congregation, which, like I said, is represented by a palm tree, because the just are like a palm tree, give fruit like a palm tree. So he will make a breach when he rises from the congregation that is like a palm tree, and is surrounded by a wall, like we see that the chosen few, which are called Philadelphia, like the congregation of Philadelphia in Revelation 3. Philadelphia means brotherly love. So it means that it's the congregation that loves each other like they love themselves. Basically, when you love your neighbor as you love yourself, you fulfill the Torah. And as we also read in that same part of Philadelphia, it says that that is the only congregation that keeps the name of the Father and the Son. It is the only congregation of the seven. Some of them have the name of the Father, but they don't have the name of the Son. So the last is going to come out of the palm tree. Which palm tree? Philadelphia, because he's the leader of the 144. And Philadelphia will be protected like Israel in Goshen in Egypt was protected from the 10 plagues. So the congregation, which is Philadelphia, no matter where they are on earth, they will be protected from all the plagues that will happen on the first 3 years and a half on earth. So it says he will make a breach when he rises from the congregation that is like a palm tree, and is surrounded by a wall, protected, and will receive a garment. That means will receive a new body, because remember, the few that are protected will be transformed. After being protected for 3 years and a half, they will be transformed. They will receive a new body, new garment, and taken to the prepared place for them for 3 years and a half until everything ends. And then the wedding of the Lamb will happen, and then Armageddon, and then 1,000 years, and then Judgment Day. So he will make a breach when he rises from the palm tree, the congregation that is protected and is exalted. The congregation that is protected and exalted, the chosen few. My kinsman is noble, is a king, and is an enchanter, like an enchanter of serpents, like Lucifer, Satan, and will receive or will give a garment. Remember also, just like the prodigal son, when he returned to his father, he received new clothing, and they were the garments of a king. So he's basically saying that after he becomes an enchanter or enchants the serpent, will receive a garment, or I repeat, it can be said also that will give a garment to those who follow him, the chosen few, with strength and swiftness. He's going to fulfill his mission with strength and swiftness, which is the meaning of the name Boaz. Remember that Boaz was the one who married Ruth. In the book of Ruth, there are two people who could redeem her, but only Boaz did it at the end, because there was a land that both wanted, but the other one did not want to marry a woman from Moab, did not want to marry her. He just wanted the land. So that's a representation of the first and the last, the first coming to die for the world, and the last coming to, through Yahushua, open a way for the many. So Boaz is the name of the guy that married Ruth, and Boaz is also the name of one of the two pillars that were in the temple. The other one was called Yachin, and Yachin represents the first coming. When we read Ruth, we don't find the name of the other person that could redeem Ruth. Why? Because in the end times, the name of the Messiah would have been taken away from people, so people would not know it. So that's why in the book of Ruth, the other Redeemer, who actually was first in line to redeem Ruth, that's why it was the first, Yahushua, his name is not mentioned at all. In Hebrew, it's called Peloni Almoni, which is basically meaning that he had a wonderful name that was supposed to be kept hidden. That's the message that we get from those words, Peloni Almoni, in Hebrew. I repeat, from the book of Ruth. So Boaz, which is a pillar in the temple, but it's also the name of an ancestor of David, the husband of Ruth, he represents the second coming. So it's interesting to find it here when we are saying all that we're saying. So my kinsman is noble and an enchanter, or enchanted, and will receive a garment. And I say it this time like this because the fact that it says my kinsman is noble. So it's basically like saying that since he's noble, since he is a king, he deserves a garment, and he will receive it with strength and swiftness when he becomes wide as a servant, meaning that his service may be completed or go through the whole earth, worldwide. So it says with strength will be wide his service as a friend who I possess, meaning that the last is a friend, either of Yahushua, who would be speaking right now, or of Yahweh through his spirit speaking right now. Since we saw that it said my kinsman is noble, then we could understand that is Yahushua the first speaking about the second coming, saying that the last will be king, and that is Yahushua's friend, just like Abraham is Yahweh's friend. Abraham represents the father of the many. The many are coming from the Gentile nation. Among them are many Jisraelim, but they don't know they're Jisraelim, so to them, in their heads, they're Gentiles. So Abraham is the father of many. The last will help Ruth to be redeemed, meaning will help the many to enter justified, just like Ruth. So that's why, just like Abraham was called friend of Yahweh, now the last, who will be the father of many, just like the meaning of Abraham, is the friend of Yahushua. Like Yahushua said that he would not call the disciples servants anymore because they were friends. So when he sent them, he called them friends. The scripture tells us in Revelation that Yahushua is sending in the end times his messenger, meaning, like we're seeing, his friend, his beloved. So it says, with strength and swiftness will be wide his service, the service of the friend that I possess, meaning of my friend, who is beloved. Yahuhanan, called John, normally, the disciple John, was called beloved. He was the beloved disciple of Yahushua. That is interesting because that is the meaning of the name David. That means that Yahuhanan, John, in certain contexts, in certain parts of scriptures, represents the second coming, represents the son of David. That's why Yahushua called him beloved, meaning of David. It's like if Yahushua was calling him David, basically saying to us, Yahuhanan is a representation of David. And I repeat, it depends on the context. It depends who else is around, because each disciple represents something or somebody. Some of them represent the same person. I mean, let's say Jacob represents the last because of the name. When he appears next to his brother, Yahuhanan, John, they both represent the two witnesses. But when we read only about Yahuhanan as the beloved, and only him, then as the beloved represents David. I hope that is being clear. So we are seeing that right here. With strength and swiftness will be wide the service of the friend I possess, my beloved, who is peace, or who will bring peace. Because Yahushua said, do not think that I bring peace to the world, because I came to bring division, a sword. He came to lit up a fire. The last one, through what he's going to do and preach, is going to bring world peace, real peace. I mean, Yahushua came to leave peace only for those who believe in him. He gave us the peace that surpasses all understanding. So, Yahushua came to give us the peace that surpasses all understanding. But he gave that peace to those who believe in him. When it comes to the world, he came to bring division, fire, sword. Now the last is coming, and is going to fulfill the physical part of that peace that everybody's waiting for the world. That's why there are prophets in the scriptures who said when a prophet comes and preaches peace, and that peace comes, then you know that he's the one that Yahweh sent, meaning the last. That's why they were expecting Messiah, Yahushua, to destroy Rome and set up his kingdom. And when he didn't do it, many people didn't think he was the Messiah. But they didn't understand that Messiah, Yahushua, was the first. And the one that is supposed to do that they were expecting is the last. Like I always say also, 2,000 years ago, they were expecting a lion and they got a lamb. Nowadays, Christians are expecting a lamb, but they're going to get a lion. So just like they rejected him 2,000 years ago, they're going to reject him now. 2,000 years ago, Israel rejected the Messiah. Now, the world will reject the Messiah. The nations will reject the Messiah. And that is the point, that nobody will have an excuse before Yahweh, because both did exactly the same thing, Gentiles and Jisraelim. So it says, the friend that I possess, my beloved, who will bring peace, whose light is Yahweh. That is perfect, because it confirms that he's talking about the second coming. Why? Because remember that Yahushua said, I am the light, the way, etc. But he said, I am the light. So he is the light. So if he is the light, who is this person that says, Yahweh is my light, or whose light is Yahweh? That means the last one who will receive the spirit of the first one, which is light, so that he can give light to the chosen few. So whose light is Yahweh. So it says, my beloved, who will bring peace, and whose light is Yahweh, has enlarged the people. Once again, the many, redeeming the Gentiles, like Ruth, has enlarged the people. My Father is Yahweh, who is a healer. Yahweh is a judge. Yahweh is exalted. My strength is Yahweh. Yahweh is perfect, and he has grasped, because Yahweh is my strength. Who is causing to forget the master workman? Oh, this is amazing. Remember, Masons, the Freemasons, They call themselves masters, workmen. They call themselves builders, master masons. Actually, master is the third level, the third degree in masonry. So they call themselves workmen or builders or masters, and they worship Lucifer, like the book Morals and Dogma says it, like Albert Pike said it, like Manly P. Holt said it, like many others have said it. But even though they have said it, many people still claim it's not true. But there are a lot of evidence if you actually are willing to accept the truth. Masons worship Satan. So they call Lucifer the architect of the universe because they themselves believe to be builders, architects. So this is interesting because he's saying, Yahweh is my strength, who is causing to forget the master workman. Like saying who is Yahweh is causing his chosen few to forget Lucifer, the master workman, or to forget the work of Masons. And what is the work of Masons? The New World Order, the system of the beast. So it says, causing to forget the master workman. And then it says, him who Yahweh heals, meaning he whom Yahweh resurrects. Obviously either the first or the last. Actually both, because once the last is sacrificed and he is resurrected, he will become one with the first. So first and last will become one at the end, at last. Like we see it in Ezekiel 37. The second part of Ezekiel 37 is about the unification of the first and the last, just like it also is prophesied in Zechariah. So it says, he who Yahweh heals or resurrects is whom Yahweh will establish, through whom Yahweh will establish his kingdom on earth, like we see in the book of Daniel. Then it says, in confusion, and this is because of the name Babylon, not because of the name of any of the ancestors, but I'm going to mention it, I'm going to include it because it is the name of a place, and actually it's going to be mentioned afterwards through the name of a person, so I decided to put it anyways. It is a name. So it says, in confusion I have asked of Elohim when I was sown in confusion, or when I was born in Babylon. That is saying, that is talking, once again I repeat, confirmation about the second coming. First of all, we are just reading the fact that he was born. I mean, in the Gospel of Matthew, because it's the New Testament. But not only that, Yahushua was born in Bethlehem. As we know, he was born in Israel. So why would we read here that he is calling from Babylon, where he was born, as the name Zerubbabel suggests? This shows that just like Yahushua was born in Israel, just like the first came from Israel, the last will come from the nations, will come from a different place other than Israel, because the world right now is under the spell of Babylon, confusion. So just like Zerubbabel was born in Babylon, but he represents the second coming, then the second coming would be born in confusion. And that's why he would be like the prodigal son, like I was saying. It says, him whom Yahweh resurrects, Yahweh will establish. In confusion I have asked of Elohim when I was born in Babylon. My father is majesty, that is Abiyud. My father is majesty. Elohim raises, or my father's majesty, Elohim will raise. This name Eliakim is important because Eli means my Elohim, my mighty one, my Eli. The I at the end is basically property. So Eli is my El means mighty one. So Eli, my mighty one. MatitYahu, which people translate as Elijah, is actually my mighty one, is Yahweh. MatitYahu. So here we have Eliakim. Eliakim. Kim comes from the word kum in Hebrew. Kum is the word that Yahusef used when he had the dreams. In Genesis chapter 37, I will be very quick about this. Joseph has two dreams, and these two dreams had an interpretation for him and had an interpretation for the last, for the end times, because the last is a descendant of Joseph, just like the first was a descendant of David, like we are reading in Matthew. But it's interesting that in this reading of Matthew, of the names, we are reading the name Zerubbabel, which means born in Babylon. We are reading the name Eliakim, and like I'm saying right now, Eliakim is connected with Joseph, because when he had this dream in chapter 37, he said, there we were binding sheaves in the field. Then behold, my sheaf arose and also stood upright. Arose and also stood upright. The word that is translated there as arose is in Hebrew kum. which is the root of Kim, found in the name Eliakim. Why is that important? Because in Judaism it is taught that every time that the word Kum appears, is making reference to the fulfillment of this prophecy given to Joseph in this dream. So when Yahusef, or also Joseph, as before getting an extra letter in his name and becoming Yahusef, Joseph had this dream, which was a prophetical dream regarding the second coming who would be born through him. So when he saw his sheaf rise up, basically he saw it Kum, saying that the last one will rise up on earth from the congregation, as we are seeing. And it says Eliakim, therefore my Elohim raises, meaning that Elohim is raising the last who would come out of Babylon, who is like Boaz, so will establish the kingdom with strength and swiftness, and will establish peace on earth, because he's friend and beloved of Messiah and the Almighty, etc. So I keep going. He says, I have asked of Elohim when I was born in Babylon, my father is majesty, and the mighty one raises, he that assists, he that will help the righteous, or he that will help to establish righteousness on earth. Once again, Yahweh raises up. Elohim is praise and majesty. So he that assists to bring righteousness, Yahweh will raise up. So Yahweh, through the last one who will assist to establish righteousness on earth, through him he will raise up for himself praise and majesty through the chosen few. Remember that there's something interesting that I've seen in Christianity. They often say, like they say, God doesn't share his glory with anybody. I've heard it a lot, at least, that God doesn't share his glory with anybody. And they take it from a verse which they are taking out of context, because in that verse in which Elohim is saying that he doesn't share his esteem, his honor with anybody, he's actually saying with anybody else than his chosen people. So Yahweh chose his chosen few, he chose his congregation, so that through them he may be exalted. But the way that he is exalted is by exalting them, us. So by bringing them up, we worship him, we praise him. So is something that will elevate both, just like in a marriage. So I found it very interesting that it says, Elohim raises he that assists and who is righteous, so that Yahweh will raise up his praise and majesty. Elohim has helped by giving a gift to the supplanter, Yaakov. And Yahweh has added, which is the name Yahusef, showing many names in the list that directly connect with the second coming. So he says, Yahweh has added, and then come Miriam, which means rebellion. So the last part, it was basically Elohim has helped, gave a gift, and that is the supplanter, which Yahweh has added. Why has Yahweh added a supplanter? Just like he added Yaakov to take over the spot of the evil Esau, who Yahweh hated. It is written, Yahweh hated Esau and loved Israel. So those who say that God loves sinners, maybe God loves sinners, because God, as we know, is fortune. In Isaiah 65:11, we read, but you are those who forsake Yahweh. You are those who forsake Yahweh, who forget my set-apart mountain. The mountain represents the kingdom, and the kingdom was offered to us through Yahushua. So the mountain represents the kingdom in which Yahushua is king. Remember in Daniel, it says that from the mountain there was a stone that was cut up not by hand, that destroyed the statue that represented all the empires of the world. So, but you are those who forsake Yahweh, who forget my set-apart mountain, meaning who forget my kingdom, who forget the Messiah. And then, this is the key, who prepare a table for God. God is the Hebrew, which means fortune. So when people love and worship God, they are worshiping fortune. They are worshiping riches. And then it says, and who furnish a drink offering for many. Many is the Hebrew, which means destiny, but is the word from which we get money, because people believe that by having money, they will be able to control their destiny. So people end up worshiping God, the mighty one of fortune, so that they can control their destiny. When we read in the book of Revelation, Yahushua is talking to the congregation of Laodicea, and Yahushua tells them that he is at the door and he's knocking, and if they open, he will enter and sit at the table and dine with them. But as we are seeing in Isaiah, the congregations of the world are in rebellion. They are not preparing a table for Yahweh. They are preparing a table for God. And remember that Yahushua said, you cannot worship or love two Elohim, because you will hate one and love the other, or you would love one and hate the other. You cannot worship God and Yahweh. You cannot worship fortune and Yahweh, because you will hate one and love the other. So this world actually worships God. This world worships fortune. That's why we don't call Yahweh God, because God is actually Satan. So if we understand that God is Satan, then we would not call our creator Satan. It makes no sense. So that's why also when I explain to somebody that you should not call Yahweh by that name, God, they say that it doesn't matter, that he doesn't care, that he knows their heart. So then I said, then why don't you call him Satan? Straight up. Why don't you do that? Obviously they jump and they think that I just said something that is satanic, but they don't understand the point, which is so clear, and we are seeing it right here on Isaiah 65:11. And why did I read that? Because as we were reading in the message of the names of Matthew, it says that Yahweh raises up his praise and majesty, and Elohim has helped by giving as a gift the supplanter that Yahweh has added. So Yahushua came as the first, as Yahweh on earth. But then Yahweh in the end times has added a second coming, has added another manifestation. And that manifestation is coming like a thief in the night, a supplanter, because he's going to take the place of the Elohim of this world, Hillel, Lucifer, who is like the sun that falls every afternoon. Why? Because he's going to fall at the end of history. But the sun in eternity is not going to fall ever, because he's going to be the Lamb himself who is going to shine on everybody. So Elohim has helped by giving as a gift the supplanter that Yahweh has added during the rebellion, meaning during the apostasy. The last is coming during the apostasy. We are in the apostasy. We are in the end of the apostasy. So it is the time for the last one to manifest. And as we know, the apostasy was not going on when Yahushua came. Why? Because Yahushua is the truth. Apostasy, rebellion, means to go away from the truth, to rebel against the truth. You could not rebel against the truth if the truth was not on earth yet. You cannot rebel against the truth if the truth had not been revealed to you. But once the truth was revealed, once Yahushua came, then people started rebelling against it. That's why he said that he came to bring division, because some would go towards him and some would go against him or away from him. So we are seeing here that the last one was added so that he would come to destroy the apostasy, the rebellion. So he would come at the end of the rebellion to supplant the Elohim that the world worships. And what is that Elohim? God, as we just saw. So the world is in rebellion because they are worshiping Satan, calling him God and other names. Because remember that Lord, they also call him Lord. Lord is Baal, and Baal is another name for Satan. So both Lord and God are names for Satan. I hope that is being clear. I'm going to read this once again. The father of many laughs. The father of many, Yahweh, he laughs because the supplanter who praises Yahweh, remember that David was from Yahudah. Yahudah means he who praises Yahweh, or he who is praised. Yahudah is through whom David came. David was a musician. He would worship Yahweh through music. So isn't it interesting, like I was saying before, in Ezekiel we see that Lucifer was a musician. But now we see that there is one coming to take his place. And the one that is coming is like David. It's called the branch of David. David is a musician. The last then will take that place that Lucifer had as the worshiper and the musician of the kingdom of heaven. So that's why a supplanter who praises Yahweh, the father of a multitude, Yahweh, he laughs because the supplanter who praises Yahweh will make a breach when he rises from the palm tree that is surrounded by a wall and is exalted. The chosen few. My kinsman is noble, a king, and enchanting. Will enchant the serpent to destroy it, but is enchanting as a king. So he will receive receive a garment, the transformation, the resurrection, with strength and swiftness. Will be wide his service. Worldwide he will service. Worldwide he will serve Yahweh, because he is the friend that he possesses, the friend that I possess. The beloved who will bring peace, and whose light is Yahweh, filled with the spirit of Messiah. The people has enlarged, meaning what Yahweh promised Abraham has been fulfilled already by the time this that we are reading would be fulfilled. And we are in this time in which this will be fulfilled. So we are in the time in which the descendants of Abraham have enlarged all over the earth so much, and they don't even know that they are sons of Abraham. So a people has enlarged. My father is Yahweh. Oh, a people has enlarged whose father is Yahweh. This confirms what we read in the beginning. Father of a multitude, he laughs, because the supplanter who praises Yahweh will make a breach when he rises from the congregation that is surrounded by a wall and exalted. My kinsman is noble and enchanting. He will receive a garment when he comes with strength and swiftness, and worldwide serves as the friend that Yahweh possesses, who is beloved and will bring peace, for Yahweh is his light, or who will bring peace as Yahweh as his light. A people has enlarged whose father is Yahweh, the healer. Yahweh is judge. Yahweh is exalted. My strength is Yahweh. Yahweh is perfect, and he has grasped, because Yahweh is my strength, because Yahweh is strong, and is causing to forget the master workman, God, Lucifer, mighty one of masons, who they called architect of the universe. So we could say here, Yahweh is my strength, and he is causing to forget the architect of the universe, Lucifer. Him whom Yahweh heals or resurrects, Yahweh will establish. In the middle of confusion, I have asked of Elohim. When I was born in confusion in Babylon, my father is majesty, and Elohim will raise up he that will assist righteousness, and Yahweh raises up his praise and majesty, because Elohim has helped by giving as a gift the supplanter whom Yahweh has added during the rebellion, the apostasy. I hope that is clear.